Trade rumors are escalating surrounding the Montreal Canadiens as recent reports out of Vancouver reveal that they are open to shopping veterans, and one Habs insider reveals a specific name that is linked to Montreal and how he would be a perfect fit, and the reported cost is not as much as you would expect. We gotta dive into the recent reports around Kiefer Sherwood and the Montreal Canadiens and the link that we have there, but it's not just that. We have some stats highlighting incredible defense from Habs players and one Habs prospect that is slipping under the radar completely. All of that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest, and we're gonna start with this prospect. And look, if you recognize him, shout out to you. We talk about him quite a bit, but maybe you don't recognize him just from the face, but this is Filip Eriksson, and he has been on a tear this year. And in a recent article from Daily Faceoff that's linked down below, like all articles, the Athletic ones in today's video will be, he has 16 points in 22 games this year, Jesse, for Luleå, leading his team. And Stephen Ellis at Daily Faceoff highlighted him as one of the top guys to watch in Europe, saying Swarovski's getting all the attention, but Eriksson deserves some love. He's Luleå's top scorer. He's playing at a 40-point pace. The team's in a rebuild after winning the SHL title, so his success is even more impressive. He's beating up notable veterans on the score sheet, and he's the top under 22 scorer in the league. Jesse, when we look at Filip Eriksson, and a guy that no one, 2 years ago, no one would have even had really on the radar, we're starting to legit discuss this guy as a sneaky guy that could come up as, if anything, like a good Laval talent or even a future bottom six talent. How are you feeling about him?
I'm feeling very excited just because we've seen just such a huge jump up in his production as we see in the Hockey DB stats here from last year compared to this year. And when you kind of factor in that he's such like a hard-working player, he's not the flashiest, but he's just so hard-working that like he finds a way to get points and just makes things happen. And again, like this is the type of player that often can make it to the NHL if you're hardworking and you can get those points. You can play defensively and you can contribute offensively. We're going to get into that more in just a little second. Who on the Habs are doing that? Yeah. That's what makes you a valuable player in the NHL. And just in the same way how like Oliver Kapanen is getting his look, Adam Engstrom are now getting his look with the Montreal Canadiens, we're picturing the same thing. And like, do I think that Filip Eriksson's going to have like the same type of success that we're seeing from Kapanen? Like, I think that that's probably a little bit more unlikely, right? Like the fact that Kapanen is just playing amazing right now, probably not that same offensive ceiling, but again, being able to produce, being able to chip in defensively in that bottom six, like if he keeps this up, he's going to get a chance with Laval, and if he keeps on playing well there, of course, like we're seeing with our other prospects, he is going to get his chance. It doesn't seem so long ago, Josh. We're talking about Oliver Kapanen in just the same way that we're speaking about Filip Eriksson right now.
That's a great point, right? Like the SHL, like if you do good in the SHL, like there's a good reason for it, right? It's not just luck, right? It means you're a really good player. So it's going to be interesting to monitor this guy. And like you said, I don't foresee him necessarily being a lock into the bottom six or anything, but one of those guys that if the development keeps going, you have to keep an eye on him. You don't have any choice. And one thing that you brought up there is, the defensive side of the puck and how a lot of times, look, you can have a lot of offensive skill, but that won't fully translate to the NHL. A little bit of it will, but if you don't have any defense to go along with it, well, that's kind of tough. And one recent thing that we saw, this comes from Hockey Stat Cards. We show their stat cards after basically every game. They went and they showed us their top defensive forwards by rating so far this year. This is the Hockey Stat Cards rating. And Jesse, a few Senators, a few Flames, some interesting names here, a couple Golden Knights, but 2 Montreal Canadiens show up in the list for top defensive forwards. And that's Juraj Slafkovsky being third among all forwards in this model in defensive rating, and Nick Suzuki coming there in 6th, really tied for 5th with Blake Coleman. You see Lucas Raymond, Shane Pinto as well. This to me is extremely interesting, right? The Selke Trophy this year, I mean, Suzuki is one of these guys who's been named in it, especially with Barkov injured for so much of the season. So I'm not necessarily surprised to see Suzuki here, but Slafkovsky for defensive rating, I think a lot of it has to do with his impact on that top line. Basically, that top line has just kept the puck out of the Habs' own defensive zone because of the amount of possession they've had in the offensive zone. But even with Slav recently being on the second line, he still tops this list. And honestly, to me, like, the more I think about it, the more it makes some sense. And I think Slav's getting a little underrated defensively here.
This is a huge surprise seeing Juraj Slafkovsky there. Of course, no surprise seeing Nick Suzuki consistently ranked as one of the best two-way forwards in the league. But Juraj Slafkovsky starting to get his roses right now, starting to get his praises, and again, showing the makings of an all-around player. And I've been very vocal for a long time with Juraj Slafkovsky. He's not the flashiest guy. He's not going to be dangling up and down the ice every night. He's the type of guy that you win with, though.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the Montreal Canadiens are going to be very happy with this selection and the patience that they're showing him, because he's really paying them back right now. And it really just speaks to the importance of winning puck battles, the playing physically, how that helps keeping pucks out of your net. And it seems so logical, right? But of course, Juraj Slafkovsky is just really doing it all right now, where we're seeing like now he can get points. We want to see that go up just a little bit more. Expect for that to continue. But then that good defensive play, he can then win those puck battles. He can get in front of the net. He's now starting to carry the puck a little bit more. Yes. He can be a shooting threat. Like Juraj Slafkovsky is really like starting to do it all now, where we're starting to see him driving a line and really just bringing so many different factors to the table. So this is the evolution of Juraj Slafkovsky, and he's still young enough to determine like what type of player do I want to be? Do I want to have the biscuit a little bit more and kind of own it like he's doing on that Demidov and Kapanen line and looking great doing so? Does he want to be more of that net front guy? Does he want to maybe be a little bit more of a shooting threat? Of course, like how he's playing, it's very much going to inform Martin St. Louis, how they deploy him going forward here. So just the fact that he's bringing it basically 200 feet on the ice right now is just such a great sign that we made the right call, but there's just also so much more for him to build off of, and what that will also create for this team, just as his uptick in his defensive play.
Yeah, for sure. And like, look, he can already win some battles, puck battles in his own defensive zone, but like his defensive reads, sometimes maybe he can improve there. He's not that bad, but like objectively, if you're on the ice and your team has the puck pretty much always when you're on the ice, that's going to lead to some great defensive metrics too. So the fact that he still has things to grow upon, but he's making this kind of impact already at this young age, it's incredible. So leave your thoughts on these guys both being here, Suzuki and Slaf down below. But the main event of today's video, Jesse, is going to talk a bit about some trades. And we're talking big body like Slafkovsky. Well, this guy's maybe he plays a lot bigger than he is. Kiefer Sherwood of the Vancouver Canucks set the NHL record for most hits in a season last year, and he had 40 points while doing it, 19 goals, and this season he's off to an incredible start as well. 12 goals, 4 assists, 16 points in 23 games. Incredible start for Kiefer Sherwood on a really depleted Vancouver Canucks team. Yes, his shooting percentage is 28.6%. Maybe that's not sustainable, but where is he linked to Montreal? Well, we'll get into that here. So we want to start it with Thomas Drance at The Athletic, link down below. If the Canucks decide to move Sherwood, they'd be seeking either young players or at least a second-round pick in return, because all the rumors that you can find in this article as well have indicated that Vancouver's ready to move on from some veterans. They're in a weird spot. They're looking to retool around Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser. We're going to see what's going on over there. Of course, they want to keep Quinn Hughes around. But Arber Basu wrote an article saying, look, if a second round pick is what it would take to pry Sherwood out of Vancouver, it might take more than that, the Canadiens need to view this as an opportunity similar to the Carrier situation a year ago. But as Gorton said, players like Sherwood have become harder and harder to find, and the Canadiens would have until July 1st to re-sign him if he proves worthy. Now, Kiefer Sherwood is an interesting name, Jesse, because again, he's a UFA after this season. Some projections have him up around the $5 million mark per year, and he is 30 at a very high shooting percentage, but I can't deny that a physical body who has a nice goal scoring edge would be a perfect fit for this Montreal Canadiens team. If the rumors of a second round pick are true, to me at that point, that is absolutely worth dangling your line and seeing if Vancouver decides to accept that.
There's things to like with this player. He's a high energy guy. He's great on the forecheck, which is key for the Montreal Canadiens' success. You have to feel like he'd fit there. Also breaking the record for body checks in a season while being able to get the points. Like there's things to like here, definitely in terms of what he could maybe bring to this Habs team. That being said, it's like just the age and the fact that he's due for a new contract coming up for me is what's kind of shying me away from this one, Josh. Just you have to feel like that extension. If we could get him like 2-3 years. But when like you're 30 years old, you're looking to lock up, you're looking to get something 4 or 5 years, kind of close out your playing career instead of getting a short-term deal and trying to gambling. Will I get another contract at 32, 33? So I think for what he's looking for and what we're looking for, that might be the difference maker potentially in all of this. We also need to consider that this is the last year of us having those extra picks. Another example of how we're coming out of that rebuild. We still got a couple of those. This is that last year. So we need to be really strategic with it. And knowing the asking price for a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, where there it's being upped up to a first-round pick, I would much rather kind of pack a punch in terms of packaging our picks to get somebody who I feel is just a little bit more of a sure bet in terms of production. Because giving big money, giving term to a guy that, again, plays a solid game but hasn't shown that production, which is what we need the most, consistently over his career, for me, would be a mistake, which is why I'd probably want to go with a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, That being said, that physicality is something. It's an interesting player, absolutely. Josh, I just want us to be so selective with this final. I don't want to get a middle six player with our next acquisition. We got that with Tessier. We got a bottom six player. Now our next move really needs to be solidly in that top six.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's completely fair. And while I think Sherwood could work in a top six position, he's far from the ideal top six guy, right? His ideal role feels like a third line winger, and that's fine. And there is still a need for that in Montreal right now. But I think you're right. Like, if we're looking at the cost it would take to get him, a second round pick, I think still is worth dangling. Because if that's all it takes, like, you taking a flyer on 1 year that could really improve your team can be worth it, right? Getting immediate results to see, okay, does this kind of guy work with our team? There's value in that, but you're right, it is a risk. And when you trade for a guy like that, in the ideal world, in Ken Hughes' ideal world, you hate losing guys for nothing. Like, you hate it. So you would really want to keep him around. And again, the culture fit in Montreal, like, the guys have really seemed to embrace everyone that's come in here, players taking discounts. So if that were the case, maybe, but I think you're bang on. Like, if you can get him at a cheaper 2-3 year extension, sure, but I wouldn't blame him either if he wants a team to pay him big money. And look, the advanced analytics, they don't paint the prettiest picture. So let us know your thought on Kiefer Sherwood, because I think we can all agree he's a fit on the team, but as a pending UFA, with prices probably going to rise, with a lot of teams looking to buy from other teams who are looking to sell, it could get interesting. Listen, leave your thoughts down below. That'll do it for this episode. Hey, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we got videos like this every single day, all the latest rumors, news. This is the spot to be. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.